The following program contains shocking portrayals of action. If you suffer from cowardice, Randall may not be right for you. Check with your video game supplier.
Biden's got your gun. Biden's got your gun. The whole world's come undone. 'Cause Joe Biden's got our guns. Oh, Biden's got our guns. Joe Biden, ooh, he's got our guns. Joe Biden, ooh, ooh. Joe Biden's got our guns. Oh, Joe Biden, he's got our guns. He's got our guns. It's bad.
Proclaiming the truth in the highways and byways of the world. Fighting for justice in the dark alleys of politics. Raising the voice of resistance to a fevered pitch. And he knows where to find the best and worst jail food in America. Randall Terry.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the U.S. Senate, they've cut a deal to cut the Second Amendment to shreds. But don't worry, the House of Representatives, that pillar of jello led by John Boehner, surely they will protect us. But if they don't, we know who will. The Iron, what do I want to call her? I don't want to call her an Iron Lady. The Iron Burqa, Granny Jihad.
Submit to Muhammad.
Welcome to the program, friend. When critical principles are at stake, they usually become more critical and more under attack in a moment when there is heartache or a crisis, and it becomes more difficult to defend the principle when emotions are running high, when people are throttling that principle or that right because of emotions and because of a crisis that has happened. And so at that moment, there are two key things that can happen. Number one, people can begin to surrender the principle, begin to surrender whatever fortress or right or truth that is under fire. The other thing that can happen is that people who are defending the truth do it with such tones that they are denied a hearing. They become shrill. They sound fanatical, unyielding, like a zealot on steroids. And what I hope to do with today's show is to not go to either extreme, but to defend the truth and to do it in such a way that equips you with the rhetorical and philosophical undergirding for you to defend the truth, to defend our rights, but also do it with a certain level of kindness, with a tone that grants people the space to have the emotions that they need. And it also requires that we look at the news and dissect it in such a way that we remain faithful to the truth, we come away with the political lessons that we need to learn, but that we also grieve with those who grieve, that we show proper respect for the injured. That leads me to the first part of today's show, because for the most part, we're going to talk about the treachery that is in progress right now in the U.S. Senate. I'm going to see some clips, our Vice President Joe Biden, heaven help us. But first I want to talk about Texas. A young man named Dylan Quick has been arrested and taken into custody in a small suburb just outside of Houston. As I said, he attacked some 14 people with a scalpel, with an X-Acto knife. 2 of them are in critical condition. So this was a horrific attack. He was born completely deaf and had an implant put in so that he could hear some vibrations. He went into a community college, the Lone Star Community College, and began to slash people. As I said, 2 of them are in critical condition. Everyone else is going to be okay. But nevertheless, it was horrific. Clearly, this is a young man who is very disturbed. He had been thinking about stabbing people since he was 8 years old and actually told people about it. He was liked. People said, we couldn't see this coming. We never saw this coming. He was homeschooled. All right? So as you know, I'm a big advocate of homeschooling. Clearly, homeschooling does not in any manner, shape, or form guarantee the outcome of a child. Having said all that, the philosophical and rhetorical question is, should we ban scalpels? Should we require a background check when someone goes into a Hobby Lobby and wants to buy a scalpel? Should we have mandatory registration of all scalpels? Or if somebody buys a package of scalpels that are more than 10. Can't have a magazine in Connecticut now that's got more than 10 rounds. Well, should we ban the sale of scalpels if there's more than 10 in the box? In China, where there are virtually no guns in the hands of the public, they have constant murders with knives. If someone is bent on injuring or killing someone, as I've shown on this program before, whether it's with a gun or with a pair of shoestrings or with an electric guitar, they are going to make the attempt. We must unflinchingly defend and protect our God-given right to self-defense that is enshrined in the Second Amendment. It is under attack right now. And tragically, people that we thought would defend our Second Amendment are caving in. So I'm going to take a break. When we come back, some footage. We're going to discuss this and hopefully equip you to fight for what is just with a pensive tone in your voice and grace to those who don't quite see it your way. In other words, you've got the truth on your side. You can afford to be nice.
Is this the mic on? 1, 2, yeah. What? Oh, yeah. Don't go away. There's more Randall Terry to come. Yes.
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
Randall, Lewis, and Clark were on the expedition, and most of the nights they played poker, with Lewis losing most of the time. On one of those occasions, he said to Randall, "Your name will not appear on the annals of this expedition." To which Randall replied, "Well, calling them barking squirrels is a silly name, and they're really prairie dogs anyway." So each guy got what he wanted.
You can tell the strength of a person's conviction about any issue by the way they defend that issue when it's under attack in a moment when it's not in their interest politically to defend the principle. For example, when Neville Chamberlain met with Hitler in 1938 and came back from Munich and said, "We have peace in our times," people were cheering. His approval rating was through the roof. Yay, Neville Chamberlain. Well, Winston Churchill took to the floor of the House of Commons a day or two later and lambasted the Munich deal and said that war is now inevitable. All of Europe will be plunged into war. Neville Chamberlain was wrong. Winston Churchill was right. And Winston Churchill, thank God, ended up saving England. But he earned the respect of people because he defended the truth at a moment when it was unpopular. What we are watching right now in the U.S. Senate is treachery of the highest order. And the reason is because senators who should be defending the truth about our right to self-defense and to have firearms without government intrusion, one by one, supposed advocates of gun ownership are caving in. They are, as Neville Chamberlain was, appeasers. Now, thank God everyone is not like that. The final deal of this Senate bill is unclear. What we know is that they are going to attempt universal background checks for all retail sales, but they are going to exempt private sales, but they might require sales between private individuals that originate on the internet, say eBay. They might require those people to have a background check. Senator Lindsey Graham, who is usually a bruised reed, she flaps in the wind, he said, and I quote, "Expanding background checks is about the most false sense of security you could provide to anybody. A broken clock is right twice a day." Thank you, Senator Graham, for saying the truth in this instant. However, the fact of the matter is that what they are proposing is an easy back door to finding out everyone who owns guns, which would be the first step in saying, okay, we want you to register these guns, or if they were ever going to try and confiscate the guns, they did. Thank God for Senator Lee in Utah, who I had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing when I was in Jerusalem last year. He took to the floor of the U.S. Senate and said these words calmly, right, and with forethought, but he was right. Listen to what he said.
Some of the proposals, like, for example, universal background checks, would allow the federal government to surveil law-abiding citizens who exercise their constitutional rights. One of the provisions we expect to see in the bill, based on what we saw in the Judiciary Committee on which I sit, would allow the Attorney General of the United States to promulgate regulations that could lead to a national registry system for guns, something my constituents in Utah are very concerned about, and understandably so. You see, the federal government has no business monitoring where or how often you go to church, what books and newspapers you read, who you vote for, your health conditions, what you eat for breakfast, and the details of your private life, including your lawful exercise of rights protected by the Second Amendment and other provisions of the Bill of Rights.
There it is, friend. Do you want the government to decide what books you read, to license you or to do a background check on you before you use your free speech? When we come back from this break, I want to use one more clip from the good senator, and we'll look at what Joe Biden had to say, because what the advocates of stealing our Second Amendment rights are in effect saying is that we need to do this for the sake of the government. Hold on. The people do not exist for the sake of the government. The government exists to protect our rights and liberties, not to make its own path a little bit smoother. Don't go away.
Do you know what Randall Terry and Godzilla have in common? Well, whenever he comes to town, the bad guys run away. Ah!
Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, You have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last.
Can wicked rulers be allied with thee, who frame mischief by statute? They band together against the life of the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But the Lord has become my stronghold, and my God, the rock of my refuge. He will bring back on them their iniquity and wipe them out for their wickedness. The Lord our God will wipe them out.
Welcome back to the program, friend. Senator Lee from Utah made these comments regarding government versus the people.
Such limitations may, of course, at times make it harder for the government to do what it feels like it needs to do. But we have to remember the Constitution was not written to maximize or protect the convenience of our government. The Constitution was written to protect individual liberty, and thankfully so.
Well, there you have it. The government does not exist to aggrandize itself and for us to serve willfully and obediently at its feet. It exists to safeguard our rights. And yeah, it's difficult for the government in today's age of communication, of transaction, of criminals, all over the place. But that doesn't mean that you take away the rights of good people in a futile attempt to go after the bad people. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, I want you to see this clip from Joe Biden. He's the court jester. All right, let's just say it. We don't have a vice president. We have the village idiot who gets to make us laugh. Check him out.
When I did this the first time in '94, it was the one group I had to go speak to and make sure they were satisfied with what we were doing were hunters. There's a whole new sort of group of individuals now who, I don't know what the numbers are, that never hunt at all. But they own guns for one of 2 reasons: self-protection, or they just like the feel of that AR-15 at the range. They like the way it feels. They just, you know, it's like driving a Ferrari. You know, it's like it's and so my impression is there's not the same sort of cultural norm about gun ownership with a lot of people who are buying guns now.
All right, well, there you have it. It's like a Ferrari. Joe, no, it's not. And by the way, did you notice what he did not say? See, he wants the whole Second Amendment to be reduced to hunting, all right? The culture of guns. This is a new culture. Mr. Vice President, this is about our right to keep and bear arms, to be able to resist tyrannical government. Now, friends, this is the point that I made at the beginning of the show. If we say what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson said, and so many of our founders, that the reason we have the Second Amendment is not for hunting, and it's not only just for self-defense. Clearly it is that. And it's not so we can feel like we're holding on to a Ferrari. It's so that if we need to, we can overthrow our government. That's why we have it. Do you understand that? I have utilized this program repeatedly to quote from Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and others regarding this exact fact. And what we see are people, even good people, who right now are are just a little timid. They don't really want to say that because they don't want to sound like lunatics. They don't want to be like Winston Churchill, who said, because of this appeasement, Mr. Chamberlain has ensured that we will all go to war with Hitler. The most effective thing that the advocates of gun control can do today is to say the truth. The truth is that the Second Amendment was enshrined in our Constitution because the founders of this republic knew that they needed firearms to overthrow the government of King George. And they also understood that due to the corrupt nature of man, that a tyrannical government might emerge again in America, and that the people would need to be able to defend themselves against their government. Now, if you don't like that, then own it. Say, I hate what Thomas Jefferson said. I hate what George Washington or George Mason or Patrick Henry said. I hate it. I think they're all lunatics. Well, say that. But don't redefine history and try and redefine the Second Amendment. It's not for duck hunting. I've got one more thing to say when I come back. Don't go away. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today.
I have no fear of the future. Let us go forward into its mysteries. Let us tear aside the veils which hide it from our eyes, and let us move onward with confidence and courage. Sir Winston Churchill.
Welcome back, friend. At the heart and soul of what the U.S. Senate is attempting to do right now, giving the devil his due, is they're trying to make America's schools safer. They're trying to keep guns out of the hands of bad people, okay? So I want to grant them that. I would love it if criminals, people who mean ill to me, my wife, my children, my loved ones, my friends, people who mean ill to you, never had a gun. Guess what? It's not possible. There are things that are not possible. I wish that no one blasphemed or used the name of the Lord in vain. I wish that people never wrote a book against Christianity. I wish that films were never made, like The Last Temptation of Christ. I wish that husbands did not abuse wives or parents did not abuse children. I wish for all of it. But one of the most glorious and at times frightening gifts that God has given to the entire human race is the gift of free will. Free will. People have a free will. People have the ability to do something. They don't have the right to do it, okay? But they have the will, the capacity to do it. And so we have to not be lulled to sleep or deceived by people who tell us that they can eradicate something which has been going on since Cain killed Abel, probably with a rock or a stick. Cain didn't have a gun, might not have had a knife. He might have just used a big rock or a log that he hit his brother in the head with. The spirit of murder exists in the earth, and probably, please heaven help us, probably until the end of time, till Christ himself comes back, we are going to have murders that happen. That being the case, Let's not follow a siren song and be duped and deceived by people who tell us that they can eradicate some crime that in fact they cannot eradicate. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
I want to thank everyone who helped write this program. I don't even know who helped, but I want to thank them. Have a good day.